it's really hard to get out of here with decent paying freight. But to be perfectly honest, just this once, I don't care. I just wanted to come down here because, well, again, I'm coming to Florida. Anyway, yesterday it appears that the dock workers strike has come to an end, as they have a tentative agreement in place. To which I say, all right, good, well done. You managed to secure a wage increase, and it looks like you might be able to win your fight against automation in the docks and the ports. To which I also say, well done. There were a lot of rumblings on the internet this week, especially on Reddit and probably a few other corners of the netizenverse, or whatever you want to call it, about truck drivers, how truckers should unionize and strike and get better wages and benefits. And to which I say, yeah, okay, you should do it. Every company guy at Werner, Schneider, JB Hunt, Swift, Prime, Knight, all you guys, just park your trucks and tell your dispatch, look, we're not going to move until we get better pay. This 60 cents a mile thing isn't going to cut it. 50 cents a mile is not going to cut it. 30 something cents a mile, depending on where you're at, isn't going to cut it. We need a fair wage for the work we're doing. And we're not going to get these trucks moving again until we get 75 cents, 80 cents, 85 cents a mile. And that's going to be a big deal, because if the megas suddenly would have to contend with unionized drivers, the ripple effects through the entire trucking industry would be incredible. It could mean really good things for a lot of freight carriers, whether it's the individual driver working for these companies. It could also mean really good things for independent owner-operators, because there's not enough independent owner-operators to fill the gap for the drop and hook markets that would suddenly be left with no trailers moving, because all the megas have accounts with basically every major retailer of any sort in the U.S. So you've got Walmart, Target, Lowe's, Home Depot, Myers, which is another Walmart for those of you who don't know. It would be a big deal for all of those retailers to suddenly not have all of their transportation capacity operational. That would cause a lot of gaps and a lot of shortages in different regions of the country, not just those currently affected by Hurricane Helene. Which could be a good thing, because it could mean drivers do get better pay. It could mean fairer labor practices. It could mean overtime pay for company drivers who work more than 40 hours in a week. And most company drivers, 50 hours a week is about the average. 60 hours a week is really typical. And 70 or more, well, 70 is the maximum, of course, in an 8-day period. Back when I was a company guy for Werner, it was not uncommon. Like I would finish my week, especially when I was doing Dollar Tree, I would finish my week having worked about 60 to 65 hours between driving and unloading, because it was driver unload freight. So if I had been able to get time and a half in addition to my unload pay plus my mileage pay, I don't think I would have left that account or that job. I'd probably still be doing Werner, Dollar Tree, because I would be cleaning up, basically home every weekend, and just raking in the money, because, working 65 hours a week at, a reasonable hourly wage plus unload pay plus mileage pay, which on that account at that time was really good for a starting guy. It was among the highest at that time mileage pay if they had to charge more to move freight, that in theory would create a trickle-down effect in the owner-operator spot market, because now, well, at least the spot market in general, because now, you know, even the owner-operators are like, no, we're not going to move this freight for under $2 a mile or $2.50 a mile. You need to be at $3 a mile or more, or this freight's not going to move. You know, that's in theory what would happen. It would theoretically, or fantastically, more accurately, create increases in rates across the board, because if shippers have to pay more to the megas to move their freight, they're going to try to dump that off onto the owner-operators in the spot market, and there's just not enough of that kind of capacity to absorb the freight rates that those major shippers would prefer. They're going to have to increase rates, at least, again, in theory. I don't think I'm probably practically correct, but theoretically it's a nice thing to think about, you know. And of course there's also the question of, should the trucking industry be re-regulated in terms of what it used to be before it was deregulated in the 70s. Now, I don't know nearly enough about the 1970s and all the deregulation that happened for trucking and airlines in the 70s and 80s. But apparently there was a minimum requirement, a minimum rate per mile that everyone had to pay to move anything. And if you wanted your load to move faster, you paid more for it. Now, in theory, again, that would be really nice to have a minimum rate per mile nationwide. That would be really good, because then it wouldn't matter where you're at in the nation. There's always going to be that guaranteed minimum rate, which would offset potentially, you know, fuel costs and whatever else. Now, again, I say this in theory because there's so much about the economics of this I just don't know, and I'm sure some of you guys who watch this and get all the way through it, who know your stuff or know your history, will quite cheerfully tear me apart in the comments. That's fine. But take Florida, for example. I mean, it's easy to get into Florida with $3 a mile freight. Easy. Maybe even $4 a mile, depending on what it is. It is very difficult to get out of Florida with freight over, you know, $1.50 a mile. Like, you're going to take, you know, 50% loss going out compared to what you were getting paid per mile going in. Because all the loads that are leaving Florida directly from Florida itself, not, you know, jumping over to Georgia or Alabama or Mississippi or Louisiana or whatever, those rates are all garbage. They're all, you know, $1.50 or less per mile freight, and in some cases it's well under $1 a mile. It's like, who in the world is taking these terrible 1,000-mile loads for $900 or less? Like, that's just stupidity. Even the flip-flop drivers should be dodging that nonsense, but the rates are still getting posted for it. So, and I knew that I would see stuff like that, because even though I haven't worked the spot market at all this year until now, I mean, I knew, I've always known Florida is easy in, hard out. That's just the way Florida is. But if there was a regulated minimum rate per mile leaving Florida, regardless, in theory that would level the playing field. Then look at California, okay? A lot of cross-country freight leaving California. I forgot there's some ways I'm going to get ready to dodge over for. If there was a mandatory minimum rate for everyone, you know, going to California would actually make business sense for some guys. Because for most folks, it doesn't make any sense to go there. Oh, ready for go. All right, I love it. Sweet. To go ahead and bypass this mess this morning. I love it. Anyway, because a lot of rates to California, you know, cross country, they're $1.50, $1.65, $1.70. They're not like $2, $3, $4 a mile like in side down, and we'll see you in the backhaul. Thank you very much for watching YouTube, and I'll see you down the road.